The silent death of respect. What happens when the mask falls? Imagine this scene. You're sitting across from someone in a quiet coffee shop, someone you've deeply admired for years. Perhaps it's a mentor, a community leader, or that charismatic figure you follow online, the one everyone looks up to as a model of integrity. You've watched them from a distance, studied their public movements, their articulate way of speaking, the genuine kindness they seem to extend to everyone. Today, finally, you're sitting with them, face to face, in a moment of unexpected intimacy. The conversation begins normally, surface level. But then something shifts. They open up. They start telling you things, real things. And with every raw truth they reveal, a strange, sickening phenomenon occurs inside you. That kind, always smiling mentor. They just casually mentioned how they routinely scream at their own children over trivialities. That helpful community figure. They laughed dismissively about manipulating their spouse into signing documents. That respectful, ethical professional. They subtly bragged about ruthlessly sabotaging a co-worker's career to secure their own promotion. You feel it, don't you? That sinking feeling, that flash of quiet horror, that agonizing moment where the person you thought you knew reveals someone fundamentally different underneath. By the end of that conversation, they are technically the same person. But in your eyes, they are not who you thought they were at all. And the worst part? You can't unsee it. Welcome to the most uncomfortable, most painful truth about human psychology. The closer you get to truly understanding someone, the more likely you are to discover the toxic behaviors they hide from the world. And once you see who they really are behind closed doors, the private reality, that respect, that genuine admiration, it's not just damaged, it's gone, and it is never coming back. The betrayal of the persona. Think back to someone you used to admire, truly, profoundly admired. Picture them in your mind. Remember how everyone spoke so highly of them. How they were always the first to volunteer, always generous to strangers, always ready with a sincere smile and a helping hand. In public, at work, in the community, they were golden. People would universally agree. If only everyone was like them, the world would be a better place. You believed it too. You watched their public interactions and thought, this is what a good person looks like. This is someone worthy of my respect. Then one day, the distance closed. Maybe you became close friends. Maybe you became a colleague on the same team. Maybe you were invited into their home for an extended stay. And slowly, painfully, the curtain started to lift. You saw how they spoke to their partner, the subtle put-downs, the control disguised as concern, the deliberate ways they made their family feel small, stupid, or dependent. And their partners simply took it, normalized it. You heard how they spoke about people the moment those people left the room, the vicious gossip, the sudden brutal judgment of the same individuals they were just hugging and complimenting seconds earlier. You witnessed how they treated service workers, subordinates, or anyone they believed couldn't benefit them. The unwarranted rudeness, the overwhelming entitlement, the complete absence of empathy for people they considered beneath their notice. You learned about their past, the people they betrayed, the crucial lies they told, the ruthless ways they climbed over others to get where they are. And the most disturbing revelation? They felt no guilt about any of it. In fact, they often thought they were smart for succeeding through deception. They may have even confided in you directly, bragging about a manipulation, laughing about getting away with something cruel, admitting to behaviors that would instantly destroy their entire public reputation if anyone else knew. And in that precise moment, something inside you broke. They were always like this, but your respect for them, that vital foundation, died quietly and completely. You realized the person everyone admired in public was merely a performance, and the real person, the one behind closed doors, was someone you could not, under any circumstances, Fundamentally, respect. Respect is built on incomplete information. Here is the truth nobody wants to admit. Respect is almost always based on incomplete information. Think about the people you respect right now, the ones you genuinely look up to. How much do you actually know about how they treat people when there is absolutely nothing to gain? How they behave when they feel stressed, cornered, or truly angry? What they do when they know, definitively, no one important is watching. You don't know, do you? And that is precisely why you can still respect them. Respect isn't just built on mystery. It is built on a fundamental assumption that the person you see in public is the real person, that their kindness isn't selective, that their values aren't situational, that who they are in front of a crowd is who they are when they are alone. But what happens when you discover that assumption is devastatingly wrong? What happens when you get close enough to see the private version, the shadow self? The disappointment is not just sadness, it is a spiritual devastation. You witness them being cruel to their own family while being overly sweet to strangers. You see them preach high-minded values they explicitly do not live by. You see them publicly help people for recognition, virtue signaling, while ignoring those same people's real private needs. You see them present themselves as humble leaders while being viciously narcissistic behind the scenes. They are actively toxic, and you, based on their performance, respected someone toxic. That realization burns, not just because they disappointed you, but because you were fooled. And the cruelest part remains, they didn't change for the worse. They were always like this. You just finally saw it, raw and exposed. The 5 stages of disillusionment. Let's break down the precise psychological process that occurs when you get close to someone whose public image is a lie. The 5 stages of disillusionment where respect goes to die. Stage 1, the illusion, the public persona. This is where 90% of relationships stop. You see their external behavior, their kindness to strangers, their visible generosity, their respectful demeanor. Your brain takes this curated information and assumes consistency. They are a genuinely good person. They present a perfect, polished facade, a form of image management that is highly rewarded by society. Stage 2, the inconsistencies, minor cracks. You start spending real private time with them, away from performance settings. Small, jarring things begin to appear. They are unexpectedly rude to a waiter. They gossip viciously about a trusted friend the moment that friend leaves the room. They lose their temper over a minor inconvenience. You instinctively make excuses. They must be tired. Everyone has bad days. They're under stress. You protect the initial illusion because it is more comfortable than the truth. Stage 3. The pattern emerges. The calculated self. The inconsistencies are no longer random. They form a clear, undeniable pattern. They are kind only to people they need and selectively cruel to people they don't. Their generosity is performed in public, but they are stingy and transactional in private. They demand unwavering respect but give none freely. They preach honesty but lie constantly when it is convenient. The more time you spend with them, the clearer the distinction becomes. Their values are situational. You realize their kindness is a form of social currency, not genuine character. Stage 4, the revelation. The mask drops. This is the full, agonizing truth. You witness them abusing their power over a vulnerable subordinate. You see the true depth of their cruelty toward their own family. They become so comfortable around you that they fully drop the mask, and you realize the toxic core is not a flaw or a bad day. This is who they are. The public persona was the carefully constructed lie. The private self is the disturbing reality. The respect you once felt is violently annihilated. Stage 5. The aftermath, unseeing the truth. You cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to respecting them. Every kind thing they do in public now looks like a calculated manipulation. Every smile looks empty. Every generous act seems like a pre-planned investment. You see the performance for what it is, and underneath it you see someone utterly unworthy of the pedestal you placed them on. This process happens more often than anyone wants to admit because our society is expertly designed to reward public performance over private character. The curse of awareness, cynicism as self-defense. You want to know why this pattern is so pervasive? Because our modern society is structured to reward the appearance of goodness over the reality of it. People get ahead by looking good in public, by being charming to the right network, by saying the right things in the right settings, by curating a flawless image of competence and integrity. But there is no immediate, visible reward for being kind to a person who can't help your career. No public recognition for genuinely treating your family well. No applause for being honest when no one is checking your work. No promotion for displaying genuine, inconvenient empathy. So, people optimize for the performance. They master the public face. They learn exactly how to seem respectable without doing the difficult, painful work of being respectable. They volunteer at high-profile charity events, but treat their own employees like disposable garbage. They post inspiring messages about mental health awareness, but emotionally abuse their partners and family members. They give eloquent speeches about integrity, but lie and cheat behind closed doors. They present themselves as humble leaders, but are tyrants to anyone who reports directly to them. The public audience gets the glorious performance. The people close to them, the family, the assistant, the subordinate, get the ugly reality. And the reality is often controlling, narcissistic, manipulative, and abusive. Everything the public image is designed to meticulously hide. This is why getting close to an admired figure is so profoundly dangerous. You are not discovering minor human flaws. You are discovering that the person you respected might not exist at all. What you admired was a carefully maintained illusion. Once you realize this pattern, once you see it clearly, you can't stop seeing it everywhere. You look at that beloved teacher everyone adores, and you instinctively wonder how they treat their spouse at home. You look at that inspiring, praised boss, and you question how they behave when their team makes a non-public mistake. You start understanding that public persona and private behavior are often two fundamentally different beings. And the more respected someone is publicly, the more suspicious you become about who they are privately. This is the curse of awareness. The more you understand about the ease of faking character, the harder it becomes to trust anyone's public image. You know too much about how simple it is to fake kindness, how rewarding it is to seem good without being good. You see through people not because you are fundamentally cynical, but because you are operating on pattern recognition. You end up in a lonely place, unable to fully respect anyone because you know what people are capable of hiding. You are unable to believe in anyone's goodness completely because you've seen how convincingly people can fake it for years. Some call this trust issues. But is it truly paranoia if it's based on decades of repeated, painful evidence? The mirror, confronting your own double life. But wait, it gets much darker because this pattern doesn't just apply to other people. It forces you to ask the same terrifying question about yourself. Who are you in public versus in private? How do you treat people when there is absolutely nothing to gain from them? How do you behave when you are angry, stressed, or when you know no one important is watching? What would someone discover about you if they got close enough to see the private reality? Are you kind to strangers but emotionally cruel to your family? Are you respectful and composed in professional settings but a deeply disrespectful tyrant at home? Do you preach values of integrity that you don't actually live by? Do you carefully perform goodness in public while being toxic in private? Most people don't want to engage in this kind of self-examination. It is easier to point the finger outwards at the hypocritical mentor. But when you do this hard work, when you look at the gap between your public persona and your private reality, you begin to know yourself in a way that is essential and terrifying. Society sells us the lie that good people are respectable all the way through. But the truth is darker. The people who seem the most respectable are often just the best at managing their image. The most admired people are sometimes the most toxic behind closed doors. They are the ones most willing to be one person in public and another, darker person in private. Think about the people you're closest to, your partner, your family, your oldest friend. Do you respect them more or less than when you first met them? Be brutally honest. For most people, the answer is less. Not because they revealed minor human flaws, but because they revealed behaviors you cannot respect. The ways they treat others, the things they've done, the parts of their character that definitively do not match who they pretend to be. The real intimacy often reveals this. Not just flaws, but toxicity. Not just imperfection, but fundamental intentional gaps between image and reality. Not just human weakness, but genuine destructive behaviors that annihilate respect. Distance preserves respect. Not because distance makes people better, but because distance can hide who people really are. The moment you get too close, the moment you see the private version, respect is not only in danger, it is standing on the execution block. Because the private version is where the controlling, cruel, manipulative, and abusive behaviors live. The things they would never, ever do in the controlled stage of public life. The gamble of intimacy, choosing your path. So, here is the question nobody wants to face. If understanding someone often means discovering they are not who they seemed, what do you do with this agonizing information? You have two lonely, difficult paths available to you now that you are aware of the pattern. Path A, protective distance. The choice of isolation. You can choose to maintain everyone at a safe, respectful distance. You build your life around surface-level connections that never go deep enough to reveal who people truly are. You never fully trust anyone's public image. You maintain your ability to respect people by never getting close enough to see the private reality. The cost? It is profoundly lonely. You live a life of hypervigilance, constantly skeptical, never knowing true intimacy. But you protect yourself from the repeated, crushing betrayal of finding out your heroes are toxic. Path B, risky intimacy, the choice of truth. You accept the risk. You get close despite knowing what you might find. You accept that understanding someone might mean the immediate and violent loss of respect for them. You choose to deal with the inevitable, painful aftermath. You would rather know the devastating truth than live in a comfortable, perpetual illusion. The cost? You will be hurt. You will be betrayed. You will lose respect for people you care about. But you leave yourself open to the possibility of finding the incredibly rare exception. The person whose private character does match their public image. The one who treats the assistant the same way they treat the CEO. This rare person exists somewhere, but finding them feels like winning a cosmic lottery, and even when you think you've found one, you're never completely sure because you've been fooled before by the masters of the performance. There is no good answer here, no perfect solution that doesn't cost you something precious, either intimacy or certainty. But at least now you know why that feeling exists. That slow, agonizing death of respect that happens when you get close enough to see someone's private behavior. That horror when you realize the true, toxic person they are. That betrayal when someone you deeply admired turns out to be someone you cannot respect at all. It's not just you. It's not just bad luck. It's that people are terrifyingly good at seeming respectable while being toxic, at performing kindness while being cruel, at building public images that hide private, disturbing realities. And respect? Respect is built on believing someone is who they appear to be. Understanding is what reveals when they are not. And discovering that truth, discovering their toxicity behind the mask, that's when respect doesn't just fade, it dies completely. That is the darkness we don't discuss. The reason why your heroes so often disappoint you. The reason why getting closer to someone you admire is such a profound risk. Respect is often just ignorance in disguise. You are not wrong for feeling it. You are not cynical or broken. You are simply seeing what people are really like when the performance finally stops. And maybe, just maybe, knowing that truth is the only real protection we have left.